Hey everyone, welcome to yet another live stream. This is a real good one. I've been, thanks to those who've been checking out my stuff on YouTube, especially. Some of the shorts seem to be really blowing up. And when things get popular, as I've learned in the past, well, the trolls come out. You get a lot of hate. You get a lot of haters, and there's no problem with that. But the theme in the haters, there's several themes with the haters. One of the themes is you're not going to take my banana away from me. So there's a video I made. It's part of a longer lecture on sugar in fruits and how sugar in fruits is the same as table sugar, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things I point out is that a banana has a lot of sugar. It depends on which banana, depends on the size, but I think 3 to 6 spoons of sugar in a given banana, depending on the size, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, fine. So the guy is saying, look, I know it's a guy. The way these guys write, the trolls are almost always men. Um, so yeah, okay, I'm not taking your sugar away, buddy. I'm not taking anyone's sugar away. Let me just be very clear about what the point of my work, the point of this channel, the point of what I'm doing is. It is not to take food away from anyone. You eat what you want. In fact, I'm like I have a very sort of what you would call a liberal view on drug use and liberal and legalization and so on. Like if you want to take, I don't care, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever you need to get through the day. There's no judgment from my side. If you have to take the sugar, if you have to take the banana, to take a banana milkshake, like I don't care. It's your business, right? And ultimately, the decisions that you make with your food are your business. What I want you to do is to understand whether the decisions you are making are healthy or not. When I used to smoke cigarettes back in the day, I never for a second believed that smoking cigarettes was a healthy thing to do, right? I did it for other reasons. I did it as a coping mechanism. I did it because I was prone to addiction. And I knew all that. I knew that someday, if I was serious about my health, or if I ever had a health scare, if I had a heart issue, or if I had whatever it may be, I would have to give up smoking cigarettes, or at least that's something I should do if I was able to, if I was able to break the addiction, right? In the same way, if you're having, Coca-Cola or whatever it is, you should not be under the delusion that that is a healthy behavior. And when you consider that the sugar in a Coca-Cola is in a higher quantity, but is the same substance as the sugar in a banana, and the banana, isn't really serving any purpose, right? Doesn't have anything that you can't get from other food sources. Then you understand that a banana is just like a Coca-Cola, just except maybe a little, instead of a pack of cigarettes, it's like one cigarette or maybe 2 cigarettes, right? Well, if you understand that, then you can make the decisions that will suit you. But I'm not here to tell you whatever the decision was. Let me tell you my whatever decision you should make. I'm not here to tell you the decisions that you should make. Okay. Now, let me just explain my own perspective, like my own story, what happened, right? Because I very much believed that the banana was healthy, and I not just that, I believed that whole food, plant based, carb oriented diet was extremely healthy, right? And I hadn't done the work. I didn't have the time. I was a busy NGO worker. I was in a different country sometimes for lunch and dinner. Like I was traveling around the world. I was really, really busy. And I was also giving lectures, and people were depending on me to do all kinds of things, right? So I was just extremely busy person, maybe 10 years ago. And so what I was doing when I had a time at home, which wasn't all that often, I was eating foods that I thought were healthy. I was eating oats. And what was I eating on the oats? I was cooking the oats for 30 minutes. And what was I putting on that? I was putting a banana. I was putting maybe skim milk yogurt, right? So banana, skim milk yogurt, maybe honey or maple syrup, right? So what is that? The oats, pure carbohydrates, right? The honey, pure carbohydrates. The maple syrup, pure carbohydrates. The skim milk yogurt, pure carbohydrates, right? Because it didn't have fat in there, right? Maybe a little bit of protein. And what happened? I was getting really sick. Like I was beginning to lose my night vision. I had a vitamin A deficiency. I believe that's what it was. I don't even know to this day what it was. My joints were achy as hell. I later found out I had an issue with parasites or fungus or some kind of thing that was really making me just feel bad all the time, sweating too much and so on. There's a story I tell sometimes about I would have my bowl of oats and then I'd go out on the tennis courts. I'd be there at 8. By 9, I was already hungry. By 10, I had to leave the tennis courts because I was so famished. I couldn't really do anything, right? So that's my story. And how did I heal? I healed by getting rid of the carbs altogether, because when I went and did my own research, I found out that we have known that carbs are toxic for at least 100 and 150 years. and that you could reverse all of my symptoms, or at least most of them, by getting rid of the carbohydrates, right? That's what I did. That's and I, when that's also what I help others to do, but I help others who are ready. If you are addicted to your whatever banana smoothie, maybe it's not the right time for you to work with me, right? If you are ready to at least cut down your banana smoothie habit, whatever it may be. Again, if you're smoking a pack a day, probably you're not that concerned about your health. It's not a priority to you right now, right? But if you're smoking a pack a day and suddenly your best friend or maybe your dad had a heart attack and he smokes half a pack a day or whatever it is, then suddenly you may have a concern. You may want to change, right? But it's difficult to change because uh, nicotine is addictive, as sugar is addictive. So the point of this whole story, the point of this whole channel is do what you want. When you are ready to make a change, I'm here. There's others like me. You don't have to work with me. I now have a network of coaches that's very big, right? And we can find a coach who will meet your specific needs. But you do need, I mean, all of us need coaching. I've learned this sort of the hard way. We all need support in order to get to our goals. Thank you, JMK2921, for the question. JMK2921 is asking, why does the AHA, that's the American Heart Association, continue to push the DASH diet for optimal heart health when that diet consists of 50% carbohydrates? Yeah, you'd have to ask them, not me. I mean, I think the DASH diet has a number of problems with it. One of the problems is that the salt content is so low. And we know from the diet, we know from all the studies that, there's sort of a U-shaped curve where low salt in the diet, low sodium in the diet is actually much worse than high sodium in the diet. Even very high, it doesn't get as bad as it gets at the DASH diet requirements, right? So the DASH diet is definitely not recommended, and it'll be really tough to find studies that are done on the DASH diet, because when they've done their studies, it really doesn't pan out, and then they just don't publish them. So in terms of the American Heart Association, I think most people know they accepted some very small amount of money. I want to say, well, it may have been $1 million back in 1950 something or other, to begin basically to publish data that was really putting the blame on fat rather than sugar for the heart issues. So listen, I think these things have destroyed its credibility, that organization's credibility, and the American Diabetes Association's credibility. And I know Ken Berry actually has a new organization that's called something similar to American Diabetes Association, but something different, that is really saying, we are going to reverse diabetes through low carb interventions, low carb, keto, carnivore, et cetera, et cetera. So full shout out to Ken Berry, full support for what he's doing. Listen, in terms of the experts, the experts sort of got us here, right? And I think that one of the first things that I learned when I sort of stepped foot in that library and went through all the materials that sort of changed my life really, was that everything that the experts had taught me, because I did trust. I'm a university educated North American person, and I believed the experts. I believed that they had my best interest at heart. I believed that they knew what they were talking about. And unfortunately, everything I learned just first from the books, like the books themselves showed not only are they wrong, it's obvious. When people talk about, for example, we don't have long-term studies on ketogenic diets, is one of these things that comes up from time to time. It's like, dude, this was an intervention that was used starting in the 1920s for kids with epilepsy. And those kids were followed because it was very concerning. Did we know that they were actually going to be okay in a year, 2 years' time, 5 years' time, 20 years' time? And those studies showed that those kids did fine. Those kids were as good as the general population, right? So in terms of long-term data, we don't have really good quality long-term data on any dietary pattern. But to the extent that we have good quality data, we have good quality data on low carb diets, specifically in the context of kids with epilepsy, right? So anyway, these are just some random thoughts. I'm not here to tell you what to do. You got to figure out for yourselves what to do. But I'm just here to give you the information, and the information that is that heart disease is really one manifestation of a number of syndromes that are called metabolic syndrome or syndrome X or whatever you want to call it, that come together when our blood sugar is elevated as part of a proper immune response. I mean, this is something else that I don't really have time to get into today. But these are not diseases per se. They're not your body trying to kill you. They're your body trying to save you because you keep pouring carbohydrates down your neck, and the body needs some way to deal with that, right? Because the carbohydrates are toxic. The carbohydrates As I said in that video, you have about 1 teaspoon of sugar in your body at any given point in time. When you have a banana that has 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 spoons of sugar, the body has to deal with that. It's not magic. It's not magically going to go away. The body's going to elevate insulin in order to get that stuff away. And for the period of time that the glucose is high, there's going to be some damage done to your arteries and some damage done to your brain, by the way, and some damage done potentially to your kidneys and other organs that may be at stake here. So as we get older, as we try and wean ourselves away from the various things that we've been addicted to as children, which tend to be carbohydrates, we have to focus on the real foods. We have to focus on the fats. We have to focus on the proteins, and we have to see carbohydrates for what they are. I mean, again, I don't live a carb-free life. I don't pretend to, right? But I know that if I'm eating, I haven't eaten a banana in a while. What did I have? What's a fruit that I had recently? I had an apple fairly recently, right? I know that when I'm eating an apple, it's not serving any nutritional purpose. It's just something I like to do. It's like, again, it's like if I have a little bit of alcohol or something like that, it's not serving a nutritional purpose. It's just, hey, this is what I'm doing today, and I know there's a cost. I know there's a price to be paid, and I'm willing to pay that price for that particular indulgence. If you're willing to pay the price for the banana or the banana smoothie or the banana ice cream, I don't care. You do what you like, and if you're ready to prioritize your health and make a change and live your best life, the beauty of choosing health is that everything else gets better. When you are focusing on your health, your relationships get better. When you're focusing on your physical health, your mental health gets better. When you're focusing on your health, you have a better ability to deal with your emotional trauma from childhood and so on. Like all those things improve, right? So whenever you're ready to take the plunge, I'm here. Other coaches are here. Give us a buzz. Health coaching is the way, or it's certainly a very effective way to make these changes in your personal context. Thanks so much. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for making these videos go viral. Thanks to my trolls, because every time you engage, even if you're thumbs downing it and putting mean comments in the chat, that's still engagement. That's still boosting the algorithm. That's still stuff that's good for me in the end. So thanks everyone. I'll see you in the next one.